Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to continue looking at scenarios in our scenario solver, and we're going to look at EC2 scenarios. So again, I'd recommend pausing the lesson, try to figure these scenarios out yourself, give yourself 2 or 3 minutes for each scenario, and then restart the lesson, and we'll talk through it and see where we end up. So our first scenario, you have an application on EC2 instances, and looking at the diagram, we're working with an RDS database. You need to securely store DB connection information, not hard code in your application. So that's pretty straightforward. We just need to store some database connection information, and we need it to be secure. Now, generally, when I'm thinking about storage, store something securely, durably, I'm thinking about S3. Unless there are other keywords in the scenario, something along the lines of long-term, well, that switches my focus to Glacier. Or the data needs to be durable, but it isn't accessed frequently, then I'm thinking of S3 infrequent access. We're not given much here, so I'm just thinking about, as a default, S3. Okay, so let's go with that. Let's go with S3 as part of our solution. Now, we need things to be secure, and by default, S3 is private anyway, so let's just assume that's where we're at. We're certainly not going to make it public. We have an application on our instances that needs to grab S3 information for DB connection. When these instances are launched, that's the process that needs to take place. So how can our application securely get information from S3? Hopefully you see where this is going. So when we launch these instances, we can have an IAM role attached to these instances, giving access to an S3 bucket, and then programmatically the application can retrieve database connection information. So we're not hard coding that in our app. It's retrieving it real time, and the IAM role is the key to all of this. The IAM role gives access to these instances to grab information from the bucket. That sounds like the solution. Let's check it out. All right, create an IAM role for the EC2 instances, giving read access. We don't need to write anything, to an S3 bucket, which is storing the DB credentials. Retrieve the credentials in the app on the EC2 instances, and we're good to go in our communication with our RDS database. Let's take a look at our second scenario. All right, you have an auto-scaling group of EC2 instances that you need to bootstrap. You need a highly durable, secure storage for your bootstrapping files. And there's some keywords there, but it's actually giving us S3. So this one might be a little bit tricky. Now, we are retrieving bootstrapping information from our bucket. Now, part of this, we know we need an IAM role to access this bucket. We're retrieving the information to configure our instances. It's kind of a cart before the horse thing, before the instances are configured. So we need to apply some intelligence to this situation. Now, how can we do that with auto-scaling group with instances within an auto-scaling group? Well, remember, we can pre-bake instances with applications, and we would do that. Let's say a scenario where the application takes a long time to configure. Well, we can pre-bake our instances with the application to ease that situation greatly. So why can't we just pre-bake our instances with the IAM role? That role is going to give us access to the bucket. Our application goes and grabs the bootstrapping files, and our instances are bootstrapped. So let's take a look at our solution. So we're going to pre-bake the AMI, which creates the EC2 instances, with an IAM role, which allows read access to the bucket. We retrieve the bootstrapping file programmatically from the instances. All right, and with that, we have completed our EC2 scenarios. Go ahead and mark this lesson complete, and let's move on to the next.